Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Die Show. I am your host, Randi-lee. On today's episode, I am going to be talking to David Poses. Welcome, David. Super excited to have you on the show.
I am so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
And tell us a little bit about who you are.
A little bit about who I am. Okay, I'm just a regular dude, I guess. I'm a father and husband and a writer. I've struggled with depression since early childhood. I'm a recovering heroin addict. I kept all of that very top secret until a couple of years ago. And then I outed myself in, I guess, as public a way as possible.
All right. So we're going to get back to that. But first, how many kids do you have?
I have two kids.
And how old? I'm just being nosy.
Yeah, no. They are 11 and 15.
Oh, teenage years.
Yeah, my daughter is 15, so that's very interesting.
I don't miss being a teenager.
Yeah, I don't either. Yep.
All right. So I'm so curious as to how you outed yourself, but that might be like the middle of the story. So I'm not going to make you start at any particular spot, but
Okay.
you decide what is the best starting point to tell us about your depression and addiction.
I guess probably we could start at the beginning. That
Okay.
would make sense. Yeah, go in chronological order.
Some people beginning works, and sometimes the middle is kind of a better start
Yeah.
for some reason. But
Right.
yeah, you start.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess as far as I can remember, I was just really a sad kid, and I didn't know, why I was sad. My mom used to say all the time, why are you so sad? Don't you want to be happy? And I thought something was terribly wrong with me that I couldn't, you know, I couldn't change that. And long before I even knew the word depression, I thought like I was broken if I can't, change this. And I didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't know how to change it. I was terribly ashamed. And so my parents separated when I was like 3 or 4. Mom started taking me to therapy. I was too ashamed of my bad feelings to even talk about them with my psychiatrist.
At 3?
Well, as I got older, she started when I was 4.
Okay. But still, even at that young age, you were already ashamed of yourself.
Yeah, I was in a bad spot. Yeah. I remember, just lying in bed at night. I don't know if I was exactly 4, but I was definitely very, very young and just like, wishing for some kind of terminal disease or something. And so my psychiatrist figured out that I was depressed, in spite of my best efforts to, hide it.
Yeah, they're good at their job.
They're good. Yeah. So they prescribed every conceivable antidepressant over the years, and nothing worked. Sorry, I should go back a little bit. In 5th grade, this cop came to my school for a drug prevention program, and he explained that you can't drive a car if you drink alcohol. Pot makes you stupid. Cocaine makes you angry. He told this crazy story about a kid who took LSD and thought he was an orange and peeled off his skin. And like, one by one, these drugs, I was just like, I don't want anything to do with this stuff. It's obviously terrible. I don't need any more anger or anything that's going to impede me from, fulfilling my lifelong goal of driving headlong into a tree.
I don't mean to laugh at that. I just wasn't expecting you to say my lifelong goal of.
Yeah, no, I get it. It was. I mean,
Yeah, no, I totally understand.
Yeah. So, so when he got to heroin, he said, heroin is the worst drug, and it's a painkiller that's so strong that you don't have any feelings. And I thought, like, it wasn't like a sales pitch for heroin, but
yeah, I was like, this is bad because it does this.
This is exactly what I need. So yeah, so like in late middle school, early high school, as my friends started experimenting with the gateway drugs. I tried pot and booze, and I couldn't stand the feeling of being intoxicated. I hated it, and heroin. I mean, this is the early '90s, long before the opioid crisis, and I grew up in the suburbs. And heroin, might as well have been like nuclear weapons. I mean, you couldn't find it. Everything else was everywhere.
And yet you managed to.
I did. I tracked it down with the suburbs just outside of New York City, so that was helpful. But so by the time I was 16, I had tried, pot and alcohol and all these antidepressants that didn't help. And so I tracked down some heroin, and it was exactly what I needed. I mean, it was so clear that it was the answer to everything. And I mean, I was at a point then where I had pretty much resigned myself to like my life was over. And if heroin turned out to be what I thought it was, then I was going to keep living. Otherwise, you know, I was done. So the idea of like it's this immoral, terrible thing, and you know all of that. It's like I saw it as a painkiller, and it was like, you know, if your foot got chopped off and you were desperately hurting, this helps. It doesn't matter what everybody thinks of it. You know,
Yeah. Just in case people are getting the wrong idea right now,
that's not a
this
sales.
is not a sales pitch to go do it. I'm sure we're
Yes,
going to get
no,
to the part of, you know, not getting on there. But I know sometimes people turn off podcasts and YouTubes early,
yeah.
and
So
I just want to make sure that they know that. I know that, you know that, but I want to make sure
yes,
they understand that
right,
if they only listen this far, it
yeah.
doesn't mean go find it.
Yeah, no, it doesn't mean go find it. And please keep listening because it definitely. I mean, obviously, the story has a good ending because I'm alive. But there was, you know, I can save you 20 or so years of misery.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry,
so,
didn't mean to interrupt.
yeah,
I didn't want people to like click off and not get your ending.
yes, yeah, no, good thinking. I sometimes assume that everybody knows what's in my head, so you know, yeah,
No.
right,
I pretend I'm a mind reader for my kid, but
yes,
I'm not actually.
right. Yeah, you know, so that was that. And you know it was the answer to my problems, but it created a whole world of other problems. This is, you know,
Exactly.
where that stuff
See?
starts.
Yeah, see?
Right. I the you know, so much lying goes in with it when you're doing something legal. The risk, the danger. I mean, it was awful to think that I couldn't achieve this feeling without this you know, awful everything else that came with it.
Yeah.
So I you know, snuck around and did what I needed to do for a couple of years, and then I decided like I can't live like this. It's untenable, and it feels awful, and I need to stop. So I told my parents, and they sent me to rehab, and in rehab I was told that addiction is the problem, and depression is an excuse, and heroin actually caused all of my pain, right? And it like the model was kind of like the inverse of reality.
Yeah. I've
But
never heard it said that way before
yeah,
because
yeah,
I mean, I don't think that's the truth.
right, exactly. I mean, you know, so it was very much it was an AA based. You know, you're going to be dead in 5 minutes unless you you know, cozy up to God and you know, work the steps and all like that. And my mom had cancer twice at that point, and so just the idea that like God didn't help my mom, but He was going to solve my problems, and like I'm this terrible
Mm,
person for doing this stuff, but like that's going to work out. And
yeah.
you know, I was fairly you know, I pretty much an atheist at that point anyway. I saw God as like you know, Santa Claus for grown-ups basically. And
Hey, Santa Claus exists.
right, yes, right, you know, the grown-up version of them. You know, I mean, they like the beards and the robes, and you know, I mean, I guess
Yeah, yeah, no.
with the, you know,
I just always have that argument with my kids every Christmas, and
you
they're teenagers too.
got to prove that, right? How else do the presents get under the
Exactly.
parents do it?
Anyway, I digress.
Right. So you know, that just it really kind of set me back quite a ways. My you know, these kind of experts without medical credentials, but they're nevertheless the experts. And my mom was, you know, terrified. And so I remember having these conversations with her, and she would say like, you know, look, what you're saying makes a lot of sense, but what if you're wrong? And of course, as a parent, you know, at the time I was like, what, are you out of your fucking mind? You know, but now as a parent, I totally get it. Like I would have been, you know, terrified also. So to make a long story short, I got kicked out of rehab for making out with this girl.
Oh,
Um, yeah, you're not allowed to do that, right? Exactly, can't do that. I got sent to a halfway house on a you know, tough love ultimatum kind of a situation.
okay.
And one of the guys that I knew from rehab, a very good friend, was also there. He was also a recovering heroin addict. And you know, this is at a time when nobody was on heroin, so it was like me and Steve, and then like everybody else had
Yeah.
some other thing. So we had bonded over just the idea that like the program didn't really, we couldn't identify with the program,
Yeah.
and the idea that, we didn't want to be junkies,
Yeah.
but we couldn't imagine, we didn't know how to live, with, we were in too much pain to live without painkillers.
Yeah.
So this place was in Florida in the notorious, recovery corridor,
Oh.
which there's a lot of, it's called body brokering that goes on there, where like people will give you, $100 Visa gift card to check into their detox center. They'll hook you up with drugs so you can fail a urine test and be checked.
Oh.
It's really, I mean,
That's shady.
it's really
Very shady.
it's very shady. I don't know if it's better or worse than, I mean, this is 25 ish years ago.
Yeah.
It's certainly, that kind of stuff still exists, for sure. But so one night I was there for a couple of days, and Steve got a dealer's phone number from a nearby detox center. And we talked about scoring some dope. And my mom had just watched me get kicked out of rehab, and the idea that we wouldn't get caught just seemed, unfathomable. Like there's no way that we were going to get away with it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, I couldn't justify the risk, basically.
Yeah.
So we agreed that we weren't going to do it. And then I woke up the next morning, and Steve was dead. He'd called the dealer and overdosed, and that was really, it scared me straight, I guess, for lack of a better
Yeah.
description.
That could have been you.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so with that, it was like, I can't keep doing this. I have to find a way to live. So the problem was, the underlying depression hadn't been treated. So sobriety was the cure to my addiction, but not my compulsion to use drugs, right? Like that
Yeah,
didn't
exactly.
solve my problem. So it was really, I held my breath basically for as long as I could, which was almost 3 years. And then, when my threshold reached its limit, I went out and scored. And that was basically the next 12 or so years of my life, was from one relapse to the next, trying to keep it together as best I could, and hiding it. I mean, nobody knew. I didn't tell anybody in my life. When I was, when I was on heroin, I built a successful career. I got married. Like I lived my life, and when I didn't,
Oh, so you even got married while you were
yeah,
still.
I was, yeah, I
You
was.
hid it from your wife too.
I did. And then, so when our daughter was born, like that really kind of changed everything. It was like, I can't, and it's not like, I had been trying to stop for, years. And it wasn't, I mean, I don't want to give you the idea. It's not like I was on it all the time. Like it was, a real on and off thing.
Yeah.
But I couldn't function without it. Like it was, and I didn't know what to do. So I relapsed when my daughter was about 2, and it was very short, but I knew that like something had to give. I knew about buprenorphine before I even tried heroin. There were clinical trials in New York City. I didn't realize that it was a maintenance drug. Also, I thought it was only for withdrawal, and methadone wasn't an option because I couldn't go to a clinic every day, and somebody would find out and all like that.
Yeah.
So I got on buprenorphine. I was 32, and I still didn't tell anybody. Nobody knew for the longest time. And as the opioid crisis was starting to occupy more space in the media, I saw so much misinformation that was going around, and all the stereotypes, and I mean the effect was so obvious, but the cause, it was like, why is this so confusing to everybody? People who are in pain are taking painkillers. That's why this is happening.
Yeah.
So I and writing had always been kind of like a thing, for me. And so I wrote this book, and the thought was, this is how I'm gonna explain it to my wife, basically.
Oh.
Yeah.
So we're kind of similar in that way. When I need to express myself and I'm thinking, how am I going to do this? I absolutely cannot do this. I like to write it out.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, part of my problem for most of my life was like, I couldn't say things out loud. I couldn't express my feelings.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
get that. Yeah.
yeah, and writing was always, you know, like when I hear people say like, oh, writing's my passion, like it's not. It's like a bodily urge. Like, you know, I barf the words out and then I feel better.
Yeah.
Um,
Writing literally saved my life. Hence the name of the show, Write or Die.
right.
Because when I was going through my deepest, darkest depression states, I wrote about killing myself instead of killing myself.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
literally saved my life.
Yeah. I mean, that exactly. So, right. So I read the book, and I, you know, I mean, I was afraid of coming clean because, you know, I saw it like, you know, as if I'd been cheating on her for this whole time. You know, I mean, the betrayal and the lies and, you know, whatever.
In a sense,
Yeah.
yes, just
Yeah.
not with that physical intimacy with another person, but
Yeah.
very much so with the
It's betrayal. Yeah,
exactly.
no question, no question. So, so Andrea was so compassionate and understanding. We had been
Good.
together for 18 years when I
Wow.
yeah, and she was just so loving about it. And so with that, I started opening up to more people, and it was like, I think I realized somewhere along the way, before I said anything to her, that like my silence is, I'm actively working against the changes I want to see in the world.
Yes.
Because, I mean, if I'm hiding this, how can I expect anybody else to have an open conversation about their problems?
Exactly.
Yeah. So that was kind of that, and I started telling more people. I had a career. I was in private equity for the longest time, and I really just, it wasn't for me at all. Like I felt like I was stuffing myself into this tiny box with hiding my real self and all like that. So I started doing this full time. I sold the book and started writing articles and all that other stuff. And I mean, it's amazing to be able to live my truth and not be just mired in shame all the time.
Yeah.
So
Because you can't get clean, you can't get healthy, you can't get out of depression if you are hiding. It is impossible.
it is impossible. Yeah.
And I think that is a huge message that people need to understand and accept, that you cannot be, so I'm going to use myself because I always, it's all about life examples.
Yep.
I cannot be happy, I can't be in a good state if I am lying to people about the fact that I have thought about suicide.
Right.
It just doesn't work.
Yep.
Because I'm continuing to be a liar. If I'm continuing to be a liar,
yep,
then my voice in my head is still going to say, you're a liar. You're lying. Why are you lying to them? You're a horrible person. And eventually,
yeah,
you crack.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think for me, it's like it's very much like that. It's a self acceptance, where if I'm so ashamed of myself that I can't let it out, then how can I expect anybody else to accept it? And I got back into therapy when I got on buprenorphine, and my psychiatrist explained depression as a distortion, which I hadn't really thought of it like that before. So the idea that like I see myself as this terrible person and everybody knows, and I'm completely incapable, and all of these awful things. And he was like, that's your perception, and it's just not true. And if you can be open to the possibility that maybe you're not this disgusting scumbag that you see yourself as, maybe you can start to believe that, and kind of see the world outside of this filter that's distorting my perception. So I mean, like it's not like insecurities just melt away and
no
egomaniac. But that kind of perspective was very helpful, and to go from like most of my life worry, like thinking before I speak and second guessing myself all the time, and like it takes forever to send an email because what if somebody reads this into that and whatever.
Yeah.
And to be in a place where like I really could give less than a fraction of a flying fuck what anybody thinks, is really it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling.
I like the way that you said that actually, because that was a really big turning point for myself is that there's a lot of different addictions and stuff in my family. I was really lucky that I never got into any kind of addiction. But because there is that in my family, there's certain people in my family that you always walked around on eggshells.
Yeah.
So I grew up, my mom's ex-husband, he was an alcoholic. So all through my high school years, I'm walking around on eggshells.
Yeah.
I have other people in my family that addiction. So again, I walk around on eggshells. And so I was always kind of lying to spare their feelings. And then that made me feel worse
Yeah.
until I got to the point that I was like, fuck it. Kind of like you said.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna be me. And if you can't handle me,
Right.
that's fine. You can walk away.
Yeah.
Now, I'm
yeah.
not saying that like I'm gonna purposefully be a mean person to them. Like
No,
that's
I
not
totally,
it.
you have to live your
But
truth.
yeah, but I'm also not gonna walk around on eggshells
Yep.
because you want to have a drink or you want to do heroin, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I can't keep myself down in a hole
Yeah. No.
just
You're
for
not living.
you.
Yeah. You're not
And
living.
feels so much better. It's like a weight's lifted off when you finally make that realization.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It really is. And so
Again, don't go out of your way to hurt somebody, but
no, yeah.
you
And I
have to
mean,
be true to you.
you have to be true to you, and just the idea that like if I would not say how I felt or what I liked or just kind of kowtow to anybody else's feelings, it's like I accept that my there's nothing about me that I don't think is like unreasonable, so if I'm going to say hey, I like this, I want to do that, whatever it is, like I'm not talking about like crazy shit that's going to hurt somebody or is offensive
Yeah,
or whatever. And so this is who I am, and I'm okay with that. And if somebody else isn't, then pretending isn't doing either of us any good. And also, like, it's not giving the other person the benefit of the doubt. Like for all the time that I went around hiding this from my wife, it was like, there's a part of it that's like, did I think that she couldn't handle it, or whatever it is, and it's
true.
yeah. So breaking that wall down makes for a stronger relationship. And look, if she wanted to say like, look, you're a disgusting person and I can't accept this, I mean, obviously I would have been really heartbreaking, but better to know. And I'm not doing either of us any favors by by hiding that. And our relationship couldn't possibly be at its strongest if I'm hiding in the shadows and
Yes,
denying who I am and all like that. So
exactly.
yeah.
Love that. So what coping skills have you learned to deal with it? Because I mean, it's an ongoing battle every day.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing about it is being able to say how I feel is a huge thing. And that, I mean, or asking for what you need. Like my wife is so good
Mm,
at, we're in the kitchen and, can you get the salt from the cabinet or whatever it is? And I said to her at some point that like, I spent so long being so full of self-hatred that I wouldn't ask you to grab the salt from the, like, by the time I've asked anybody to do anything, I've exhausted every conceivable permutation of how I can, get it
yeah,
done on my own. Because I don't feel like I'm worth it. I don't deserve the help getting the salt. And like, that's such a small, stupid example.
but it's
Um,
true.
but it's true. And
Yeah.
so being able to do that is huge. And I think, I mean, as far as like the kind of general coping mechanisms, the buprenorphine is a huge deal because it elevates, the kind of base level depression. Like it saturates my opiate receptors like a warm blanket of, you know, the pain threshold is, I guess, higher. It raises it.
Okay.
Like it's an antidepressant essentially.
Yeah.
So that kind of insulates me from the absolute worst scenario, and then all of the kind of tools and resources that I have to communicate and to see the distortion when it comes up. I mean, look, depression is degenerative and it's biological. Like it's not like oh, I said all this stuff and now I'm fine. Like that's just not
Yeah.
how it works.
Yeah. The chemicals in your brain are not
Yeah.
proper.
Right. And there's circumstances also, like you can like my kind of base level default negative bias is insulated right now between the therapy and the buprenorphine. But if something happens, like, family member dies, or, whatever it is, like that is going to trigger, a kind of circumstantial type of depression, that, knowing when that comes up, that it's okay, acknowledging the feelings, not beating myself up for like, what, I thought I, reinforced all of this crap and I should be fine. Why am I feeling so bad? So like not, questioning it when it comes through. And
accept your feelings as they are.
Accept your feelings. And it's like, there was the idea of like, I mean, I'm certainly not a perfectionist, but like the idea that like, I shouldn't be feeling this way. I've done all this work. Like, hey, it happens. It's okay. And going easier on myself is a huge part of it too. And also, I mean, it might be kind of silly, but like knowing that I'm out there talking to people, and like when I can make an impact with somebody else, or connect, or somebody says, hey, that resonates with me, or whatever it is, like that is so valuable for me, and kind of validating my experience. And I know you shouldn't need external validation to feel good about yourself, but look, I'd be lying if I said that wasn't true. So
yeah, you don't need it, but it is nice to have.
It is nice to have. I mean, and I definitely get, just by virtue of being out in the world saying what I'm saying, like, I get people all the time saying, you should have jumped off a roof, and, you're a bad person, all that kind of stuff.
People say that to you?
Yeah. I mean, not that often. I mean, look,
Still though, even once is too much.
It is. Yeah. And I mean, I recognize that I'm taking some, unpopular positions on things, and, that's fine. Yeah. But, but I can deal with that. And that, my hate mail to love mail ratio is so unbelievably skewed in the positive direction.
Good.
I can handle that. And, you're not going to make everybody happy all the time. And that's fine.
It's true.
Yeah. The kind of like people, pleasing. I mean, like you said, I'm not going out trying to be an asshole and hurting people.
Exactly.
But I know who I am, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So
you're never going to like everyone 100%, and not 100% of people are going to like you.
Never.
Personalities clash. That's the way life is.
Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow, that was such awesome sharing. Thank you so very much. Tell us more about what you've written, especially that first book you were talking about, your kind of coming out story.
Oh yeah, that's my first book that I pursued publication with. I've been writing whether short stories or novels, I mean mostly fiction, since second grade, and I just had such an acute case of fear of failuritis that I couldn't do anything with it. I mean, like I showed writing to very few people, and so I would like write a novel and then kind of put it away and write another one. Like that was kind of my pattern. And so with The Weight of Air, which is the book about the memoir, after I showed it to my wife, and I started talking to some friends, and I showed it to some friends, and I know some of my friends have written books, are published authors. And a few people were saying, like you got to do something with this, and it's a relevant national conversation and all like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, basically, like I I decided that I was going to query. I was going to look for literary agents. I was going to find the 5 like the agents of my dreams, and assuming that they would either not respond, or tell me you suck and you have no talent, and then I would be able to just kind of give it up. And I got really amazing responses.
Wow.
I signed with an agent, so that led to the all the articles that I started writing, and selling the book. And so I mean, I still haven't done anything with any of my other stuff. Like I have this files of
maybe one day.
Maybe one day, yeah. But I mean, I think the thing about this book that's important is I'm not the exception. And
no, not at all.
And there are so many. It's obviously a very crowded space, but there's a lot of the addiction memoirs that are they kind of follow the disease model, and addiction is the problem. So I'm turning it upside down, basically, because my addiction is a symptom. And the treatment that I received, which is the predominant model, is this is why it doesn't work for addiction as a symptom. And the medically assisted treatment, which the predominant model just flat out rejects because it invalidates your sobriety, like that works. And so a couple of years ago, my views, 25 years ago in rehab, like it was just straight up blasphemy, the things that I was saying. But a couple of years ago, my crazy opinions started being reflected by addiction science and all of these studies, where it turned out that faith and abstinence-based treatment dramatically increases your risk of death, overdose, and relapse. Whereas medically assisted treatment is proven to dramatically cut your risk of death, relapse, and overdose. So yeah, so like it's good to have science on my side, I guess.
It can validate you. Remember, it's more of that external validation.
It's definitely it's definitely helpful. But again, like I know that this is my experience and that it's true for me, so I don't really care. If
No, exactly. Your experience is true for you. It may be true for somebody else. It may not be true for somebody else.
Right. But I know that anybody that I've met that struggled with addiction, and certainly opioid addiction, like we can all relate to each other because this is how it is. So like the junkie stereotype, like I don't know any stereotypical junkies. I only know exceptions, and everybody that I know only knows exceptions. So yeah.
What is the stereotypical junkie that you are referring to?
I think it's like a bad person who goes out and uses drugs because they're just an evil, terrible person. Like
so the movie type.
Right, like the idea that we wake up one day and we go, I'm really I wish I could find a way to break the law every day, and getting myself addicted to heroin would be great because I could commit crimes, constantly.
Yes, so the movie version.
Yeah, right. The movie.
Yeah, because I definitely don't know anybody like that either, and I know, like I said, I know a few people who have gone into addiction. And actually in college, so I went to college for community and justice services, and part of that we had to do a placement. And for my placement, I was in a drug and alcohol recovery house, which was so cool, so eye-opening. And I can't think of a single guy there. It was a male house, a single guy there that just woke up and decided one day, I want to break the law every day. So yeah, there's that stereotype. I think it comes from movies and the media, and people being scared to know the truth and scared to reach out to people.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, it's really it's just fear and it's hate, and that's why the solution to this to the overdose crisis is so obvious to me and has been for such a long time. And it's like, you go out and have these conversations with people about people are dying right now because unknown potency is the danger. During Prohibition, people were dying from, methanol poisoning and alcohol. I mean, if you can drink a pint of beer safely, but you can't drink a pint of grain alcohol, if you don't, if it'll kill you, and you don't know what's in the pint glass, guess what? You can't prevent overdose. And so legalization is, that's the difference. And so, we kind of like debunk these myths every day just in our regular lives knowing it, but you go out and you make a statement like that and people are like, oh my God, this guy's out of his mind.
Yeah.
But that actually happens to be, it's the answer. And I think that's how so much of this is. It's like, we think that I could tell a junkie from a mile away and, it's so obvious and that's the stereotype. And it's like, and yet we're constantly surprised when we find out that this person is, struggling with addiction, all that. And like, nobody wakes up in the morning and starts drinking at 7 o'clock and, functions all day. Like everybody knows that. And yet we know that there's people all over the world that are, prescribed painkillers and not only function on them, but need them to function. And we know that there's so many people who, we're shocked when we find out that they're on drugs. And so, it's not so obvious. You can't tell a junkie from a mile away. Like if
not at all.
We'd never be surprised. There would never be a person, like me who's able to, get away with being a functioning, addict and all like that. So
yeah, so true. And actually it's something that popped into my head. I use a lot of Frozen 2 references because my grandson is obsessed with the movie and we've watched it a bajillion times.
Okay.
Such a good movie though. If anybody hasn't seen it, seriously, even as an adult, you need to watch that movie. Anyways, so when you were talking about the fear, there's a line in that movie that Elsa says when she's gone to Holland, and they're talking about magic is to be feared, and she goes, no, or magic you can't trust. She goes, no, what you can't trust is fear, or however she says it, right? Fear is what you can't trust. And that is so true. When you fear that junkie,
Right.
you can't trust that fear. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to let them live in your house or whatever, but you don't have to be scared of them.
Well, right, and that's where, I mean, so much of the hate that's going on, with everything is just fear and not knowing the truth. And I think as people, I mean, look, there's something to be said for accountability for sure. Like if somebody's breaking into your house and robbing you to pay for drugs, like that's not okay, and there needs to be accountability. But just the idea that we believe these things without knowing why. And then we're unwilling to be open to the possibility that maybe we're wrong or there's a different way or whatever it is. Like
of the people that are close to me, that I know are either addicted to drugs or alcohol. I'm trying not to use names or any kind of giveaway. But of those people, and I talk to my one aunt about this all the time because I talk to her like almost every day because during COVID she's off, so I got nothing better to do.
Right.
And it comes down to not having the support or not wanting to accept themselves as they are, and there's no support for them to get to the point that they will accept themselves and accept the mistakes they've made, whether it was before they started in their addiction or after they started in their addiction. But you can't go back and change the past. You have to accept that that has happened,
Right.
but it doesn't have to rule you in this present moment. And for the people that I'm thinking of, it's still ruling their life now, and that's why they're still in the throes of their addiction. There's somebody else that comes to mind that we were very, very close when I was younger, and then there were some hurtful things said to me when I was pregnant, and now though they're sober and have been for, I don't know, my kid's 14, so probably around 13, 14 years now.
Okay.
And I loved them before. I loved them even while they were in the throes of their addiction, even though I had to distance myself from them just because I couldn't be in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I love them even still, right? And for them, it seems like it's taken a harder time for them to accept the fact that I still love them. Because they're so hard on themselves. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of, for me, the kind of like mistrust of, or maybe, disbelief is a better word. Like, the waiting for the other shoe to drop, or, maybe they haven't figured it out yet. And I mean, so much of that comes with the self-acceptance. Like, if I know that I'm okay and I'm okay with myself, then it's easier to, believe that, and have faith in, in the faith that other people have in you. Yeah.
What would you tell somebody who's listening right now who is struggling with their own addiction?
I'm more of a listen than dispense advice without.
I know, but I ask everybody this question.
I mean, I would want to know more about what's going on, I guess. But I would say definitely, some kind of self-acceptance and not being ashamed, and knowing that, it's not your fault, like oh, you poor baby, you're a victim kind of a way, but you're worth it. Like, ask for help. It's okay. And the other side of that is that, like, it's very hard sometimes for people to ask for help because of the attitudes on the other side. I mean, like, if I said to somebody recently, like, if you heard the way that you sound when you talk about drugs, you'd understand why it's hard for your kid to tell you, what's going on. And so, I mean, this might sound really cheesy, but like, there's something to be said for the golden rule. I mean, everybody, or I shouldn't say everybody, but I imagine that most people have done something that they're ashamed of that they've lied about, you know, and that's why we're lying about it's not because we're liars. Like we're not lying about everything in our lives, or
Yeah.
we're, you know, bad people that just like, you know, spewing bullshit for no reason. Like we're lying because we're ashamed. And so, you know, something that's absent from a lot of these conversations, you know, when I told my parents about it, and you know, they were scared and outraged, and you know, understandably so. But for the longest time, I went around saying, you know, oh, heroin's pure evil, and it's, you know, terrible and whatever. So I'm invalidating my own reason for using when I do that. And when we jump into these conversations and say like drugs are, you know, we blame drugs, and you know, you're going to die in 5 seconds if you don't stop. Like we need to ask, why are you using this? What is it doing for you? There's clearly some benefit, and when we don't acknowledge that, you know, we're missing that important piece, because whatever you're using it for, whatever it's doing for you, that needs to be treated, because until that's addressed, you're never going to stop. I mean, you're just not. And you know,
That is such a valid point.
but we pave over that, you know, and it's very tempting to, because we're scared and we don't understand it. But you know, if somebody were to have, and not only that, I mean, in my experience in rehab, like they completely invalidated it. I mean, they were explicit, this is an excuse, it's not true. You know, if somebody would have said, what's this doing for you, why, you know, why are you doing it, all that kind of stuff, it would have been such a huge deal. And I, you know, anytime I have that conversation with somebody, like that's the one thing that's absent from most I mean, I can't think of an example where anybody said, oh yes, I, you know, I did ask my kid, or you know, whatever it is. So I think that's a huge part.
That's some great advice. Not that you're giving advice.
No, I'm definitely not. I mean, that's the other thing. I have to always be careful that, you know, I'm not a doctor and this is not medical advice.
Yes, exactly. And actually, I've talked to some people about part, you know, with this question, and we go, part of it is don't give people advice.
Right.
So this isn't, you know, advice. This is just, hey, if you were my friend and you were listening right now, this is what I would tell you.
Exactly.
And not in an advice way, just as like a personal experience way.
Yep. Right.
So where can people get a hold of this book?
Okay, so the book is coming out on July 6th. It can be pre-ordered now from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, you know, anywhere else. You could walk into a bookstore and ask them to get it. Signed copies are available online and in person at my favorite local bookstore, which is called Split Rock Books.
And where is that? Because obviously I'm not local to you.
Sure, that's in Cold Spring, New York. And you know, so if you don't want to put more money in Jeff Bezos' pockets on Amazon, you can you know, get it from Split Rock. Or
and if you are local to them, I mean, that's a great thing to do. I'm not, so you know, that would not be an option.
Walk into your local bookstore and, you know, ask them to order you a copy. That would be fine. Yeah. Excuse me. And so my website has links to, it's available also on, you know, Nook and Kindle, Apple Books, you know, all of that kind of stuff. Links to all that are on my website, along with reviews and blurbs and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So
wonderful. Yeah, and where can people find you?
Right. So I'm davidposes.com. Easy enough to remember. I'm on Twitter. I'm David the Kick. On Instagram.
Why the Kick?
Originally, the book was called The Kick because,
okay.
You know, the idea of it's like kicking, you know,
kick the habit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we changed that. But I set up the Twitter account when the book was called The Kick.
Okay.
So Instagram is David_the Kick. On Facebook, I'm David.poses and davidposes.author. I mean, links to all of the stuff is on my website. So,
and all of those links are in the description down below, because we want to make it easy. You know, you're the only other person that has pointed down below with me.
Really?
Yeah. And you'd think everybody would want to, you know, point. Exactly. So be sure to follow David, and I know I'm looking forward to reading my copy, and I hope everybody else picks it up, because it sounds like a really great book. And thank you so much for being on the show and sharing the truth for you, your truth.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. This is great. Thank you.
What a great interview. And I love the fact that we are stopping all of the fear that people hold against people with addictions or other types of mental illness. Because really, sorry, I'm busy ending the stigma. Had to throw that in there. Merch store, get yours. So David was awesome. Speaking of the merch store, remember 10% of those proceeds goes back to the Canadian Mental Health Association. We have a few different designs on there. This one's one of my favorites. And if you are part of the Patreon, there is some behind the scenes footage of David and I just kind of chatting about a few other things. So you can go and check that out as well when that gets posted. And of course, remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out his links down below. And the only way to end the stigma of mental health is to speak openly and honestly.